Perfect. Good evening, everyone. It is now 6:32. Welcome to the Climate Change Committee on the 22nd of June 2026. First item on the agenda is the election of a chair for the municipal year. So can I please request nominations for chair of the committee?
Could I nominate the Mayor?
Thank you. Is that nomination seconded?
Can I second that, please?
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Spice. And are there any other nominations, please? No? Okay, perfect. Thank you. I declare Mayor Wootton duly elected as chair of the committee for the ensuing year. As Mayor Wootton has given his apologies for this meeting, can I please request nominations for the appointment of vice chair of the committee?
Could I nominate Lucy Bywater?
Thank you. And is that nomination seconded, please?
I'm happy
I
to second
seconded,
that.
Councillor Teague.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other nominations, please? Thank you. I declare Councillor Bywater duly appointed as vice chair of the committee for the ensuing year. Can I invite you to chair this meeting, please?
Thanks, Ellie. Okay, so agenda item 3 is questions from members of the public and members of the council. I think we might have something. Councillor Foley?
Right. Yeah, thank you. I was rather hoping that the mayor would be here so I could ask him a question on a different topic, but anyway. In his absence, I want to ask about the red alert for extreme heat. We're being told people are in danger, including people who don't have any underlying conditions. I'm particularly worried about residents of top floor flats, residents of south-facing flats, and residents of single aspect flats who therefore find it impossible to get a through draft. Now, it feels to me like climate breakdown is going to be particularly severely impacting, this group of people. My concern here is that our housing stock.
You've frozen again, Ben. You did that this morning too.
It's the heat.
Can you hear us, Ben? I'm not sure if we're going to get him back. He's obviously highlighting concerns about the housing stock and how that affects certain people more than others. And I think people renting as well, because they have less control over the fabric of their building in most cases. Obviously in Greyfriars Ward, Ben has quite a few blocks of flats where people are particularly vulnerable. At the top, Greyfriars Towers, particularly really vulnerable people, those top floors. I don't know, Paul, is there anything you can say? Obviously, it's a sort of public health issue as well as, a building's housing issue.
Yeah, I know we've issued some guidance today on dealing with the heat and stuff. But yeah, we can have a look and see what we can circulate, and then see if that can get pushed out as well.
I mean, I see there were council press releases going out about the red alert, which is really concerning for everybody, but especially for people who are elderly or disabled, or those with heart conditions, young children as well, and of course homeless people who don't perhaps even have a roof over their heads. So it is sort of quite a serious issue at the moment. I mean, one obvious thing in the short term is shading. So yeah. I don't know if housing associations could be approached about window shading, because that's quick to install, relatively quick to install, and also inexpensive. And then obviously there's the active cooling of reverse heat pumps, air-to-air heat pumps, that could make a real difference to people. And it's something we need now, sort of not in the medium future or the long-term future. It's something quite urgent, isn't it? Is Ben come back? No, I don't think Ben's able to get back on.
No, Lucy, I've got my hand up. I just wanted to speak up on this. Paul, is there a way there are a number of halls around the borough that have got air conditioning. I know Great Denham, we're lucky to have that. And I've put a shout out to our hall to find out what's available for the rest of the week. And then as soon as they come back to me, I was going to get all of BPHA and the housing associations just to say that the hall will be open for free for people to come in and spend some time there. There's plenty of stuff there. There's, they can get a drink and stuff, but they can sit in the main hall, which is fully air conditioned, which would be good. I wondered if there's a way of finding out how many locations across the borough that might be able to do that. That might help.
Can I have a look?
Yeah.
So Jim, on the press release that went out this evening, or later on this, late this afternoon. You're welcome to use our cooler indoor spaces, Higgins, local libraries, etc. There's also a number of welcoming spaces. Details to be found on the link tree on our bio, but maybe it's probably worth actually, publishing them and getting them written down.
Well, I'd said as soon as I know from the manager of the hall what's available, I'll put that out on social medias and all sorts of whatever I can find to put out on.
Yep.
I know when we had this last time, we had lots and lots of people. We were even getting volunteers to pick them up and bring them to the hall, which was good.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Nikki. So can we just be sure that the welcoming space list is up to date? Because I looked at it a few days ago and I thought, I don't know if it's up to date. So the worst thing would be if someone struggled along or got the bus to somewhere where they think they could spend the day and it wasn't open, or indeed it was nearly as hot as their own home. Yeah. So can we be sure and confident that they are, I know people will be very willing who are volunteering to do that, but are they up to date in terms of suitability and timings? If we could find that out, that would be good. And Andrea, Councillor Spice, you have a question.
Oh, no, it wasn't really a question. It's just to follow on with this. So what's really a question? It's just. I'm sorry, I've got echo. What's coming out from the housing department for the severe weather emergency protocol is that we've opened up night beds for all that can access. We've additional hotel rooms booked for those that cannot access the night beds. We've got a day centre extra provision until 6 o'clock. And we've got the outreach team carrying and distributing water, sun cream, sun hats, etc. Because I know you mentioned certain people. So just to say that we are within housing, and with the homelessness, we are already looking into some of this already.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from members? Okay, thank you. One other question I have, it feels a little bit trivial in a way because we're in a heat wave and people need to drink a lot. But I have been thinking for quite a while, when I'm in Borough Hall, why are we still seeing the plastic water bottles provided? Because is the long running water supply issue that there's been, is that being remedied? Because it's an environmental cost, it's a financial cost. And it's not a very good example, to be honest, when people see on the screen councillors guzzling water from water bottles that council taxpayers have paid for. So is there a timeline for finishing that process so we can go back to having our water that we can fill up ourselves in Borough Hall?
I don't know the answer to that, but I have seen some new water coolers being delivered and put out. They've not been connected yet, but so that looks like we're on the way to. Oh, Paul, sorry, you've obviously got an answer.
Well, no, I was going to say the same as you, Jim. I've seen them in the cardboard boxes. I don't know the description, but they look like the ones that are fed directly from the mains. So I think they were delivered last week, I think, weren't they, Jim, towards the end of last week. So hopefully they'll be stored in the next week or two, and then we should be back on fresh or clean, cold water that's dispensed from them machines on each floor rather than using the bottled water, as you said, Lucy.
Good news. Thanks, Paul. Well timed as well, because everyone, obviously members and staff need to be hydrated in this heat. Councillor Hendricks, you've got a question.
Yeah, no, it's a related point. It's about kind of where are the water fountains in our town centre, and how do people find out where they are? Because especially with the hot water, with the hot weather, it would be really useful for people to be able to fill up and to have access to water fountains.
Well, I know there is one in the downstairs of the Harper Centre, and I heard today that they are welcoming people there, and that is relatively cool, and there's nice toilets nearby and people can sit, there's comfy chairs, so that is one option. I don't know if people know about other water fountains apart from the refill scheme.
I was going to say we don't have any, certainly don't have any council water fountains around town, but we do have the refill scheme, which still has the stickers in the window, you know, the water sticker. But I would also just say that most pubs, etc., are going to be community focused, and if somebody goes in and asks for some water, I can't imagine anyone's going to turn them away in this weather.
Thank you. Yes, maybe it would be a good idea. Could we ask comms to do a publicity on the refill? Because although people might be able to get a glass of water from pubs, and as you say, I'm sure they would say yes, they might actually need to fill their water bottle up for the rest of for the next hour or two on their travel. So it would be good to be able to publicise what the refill scheme is, so that people don't feel hesitant about getting their bottle filled up in those places. Could we do that? Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, have we got any other questions before we move to next item? No. Okay, thank you. So the next item is to receive apologies for absence. So we have apology from the Mayor. Do we have everyone else here?
We also have an apology from James Lynch.
Okay, thank you, Ellie. Okay, and so next, previous minutes. Can we confirm the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 16th of March? Everyone happy? Okay, thank you. And so then we move on to item 7. So this is Bedfordshire Local Nature Recovery Strategy that's been adopted. And we're going to receive a presentation from Mr. James of the Central Bedfordshire Local Nature Recovery Strategy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Councillor Bywater. My name is Richard James, as you mentioned, and I work for Central Bedfordshire Council. So I'm just going to run through my presentation, so hopefully you can all see a nice picture of a bee orchid on your screens. Perfect. I just thought I'd start off kind of a bit about the context of why we have an NNRS, and then go into a bit about the delivery. As you've mentioned, it's now adopted. So obviously, as you're all fully aware, we have the climate crisis, and inextricably linked to that is the biodiversity crisis. We have a large number of species that are declining. Some have gone extinct since the 1500s, and about 1 in 6 are threatened with extinction in Great Britain. So there's a significant issue for biodiversity, and the two things, like I say, are inextricably linked to climate change. But not just climate change. Within Bedfordshire and the country as a whole, there's a whole range of different pressures that are being put on our wildlife. Obviously, the development, increasing housing and economic development, population growth, water resource challenges, which is again linked to climate change, obviously, water quality, air quality, the health of the soil. So the thing that kind of holds everything up. Healthy soils are essential, and they have been degraded over time. And the way that the habitats in Bedfordshire, the really important sites for nature, are split up, are very fragmented. Some of them are very isolated. So we have some really great places for nature, but they're very vulnerable to pieces to issues like climate change, whether we get drought or wildfires or through flooding. And also that kind of connection that people have to nature is really important. It's something that gives people a real sense of place and enjoyment, and has those additional benefits of mental and physical health. So as a county, Bedfordshire has some really important sites for nature, but we don't have a lot of them, and those that are in existence in Bedfordshire are very well isolated. So we see on the map on the right, they are all of our protected sites. So they're the sites of special scientific interest, the national nature reserves and the local nature reserves, and also the county wildlife sites. As you can see, most of them are pretty well isolated. There's not huge areas of protected sites, and it just makes it very challenging for some of the most valuable species, some of the most threatened species, things like dormice, who aren't very good at moving around unless they've got large connecting habitats. So Bedfordshire is starting off as one of the most depleted counties in England, and England being one of the most depleted countries in the world, nature depleted countries in the world. So we have a real challenge on our hands, and we know that actually healthy places, nature-rich places, are better for people, and it helps the economy, it helps people's well-being, it helps us mitigate those impacts of climate change. So this graphic's been doing the rounds for a number of years from a government review, and it just highlights the benefits that we will get as communities, as a county, if we create a nature-rich environment. And these are just some of the benefits. Climate regulation is just one of those, air quality, but we have all the other benefits around soil formation. Again, something that often overlooked, but is vital for pinning and supporting everything else. Recreational benefits that people have, mental and physical health, pollination, which is so vital to crops. So there's a huge range of benefits that we get from nature, and it's now that we're starting to put a value on that, a natural capital value on these, to try and bring in that finance that can help us address some of these issues. And we know people care about it. We know that vast majority of people agree that being in nature makes them happy, whatever nature is to them, whether that's a walk in the woods, a walk by the river. We know that it makes them happy. And these are just some of the quotes from our consultation last year on the strategy itself. The real joy that people get out of it as a tangible benefit, as that capital that people do need from nature. So how does that all link to the LNRS? So the LNRS is the Local Nature Recovery Strategy. It is one of 48 in England, and about 40 of them have been published now. We published ours in December, and the majority of councils now have got theirs. We have all of our neighbouring authorities have got their strategies as well. So what the LNRS is trying to do is to link up the most important sites for nature. So identify those actions, those priorities that people can deliver, because there's so many different things you can do for nature recovery. What are those key things that we think are best delivered in Bedfordshire? And then, as you've seen on the previous map, we've mapped those most valuable existing areas, and then we've also mapped the potential sites where you could start linking up those areas and the opportunity areas, as you could call them. Central Bedfordshire, we're officially the responsible authority for the county, so we're responsible for producing the strategy. And then we've recently had some guidance from central government on what the next steps are to try and embed this throughout the county and across all three authorities. Obviously, we're working with yourselves and Luton Borough Council and a whole range of other stakeholders as well. We've worked with environmental charities, wildlife trusts, for example, farmers, with community groups. So it's a whole range of people have input into the strategy to give us these priorities and these potential locations. And in a nutshell, what it's trying to do is identify, enhance and join up the most important places for nature, make them bigger, make them more resilient, create some of these stepping stones where nature can move between sites. And while doing that, and while benefiting nature, it creates those ecosystem services which will benefit us. So this is the a map of all the opportunity areas that we've mapped in the county. Of all the different things you can do, it's all into one layer, and this is essentially trying to set out where we think the best places are to deliver those interventions. But it doesn't mean that they're the only places. We've mapped about a third of the county. There's a lot of white spaces that we haven't mapped any actions, but there's a lot of actions that could be delivered anywhere in the strategy. So these are just the locations where the specific things that we think could be delivered there. And just to give you an example, this is a picture of one of the farms, one of the estates we've worked with, and you can see they're attempting to link up these areas of hedgerows across the landscape, putting in new ponds, creating new woodland. It's all about linking up these areas across a landscape, across boundaries, whether that's administrative boundaries, landowner boundaries. Ideally, we want farmers, for example, to be working together to deliver much more than they'll be able to deliver on their own. So what does it mean for us as local authorities? We have a duty. So as I'm sure you're all aware, we have the biodiversity duty, as it's known, which means that we have to conserve and enhance the environment, and we have to report back on that to government. We also have to take account of the LNRS in our planning decisions and our policies, and in particular things like local plans. As I believe all three authorities are in this similar stage of the process where we're developing our local plans and taking account of the LNRS in developing those plans, looking at those opportunity maps and thinking, okay, where if there's a development here, how can we incorporate some of those measures that we've identified in the LNRS? So that's the strategic side of thing, and then obviously on the individual planning decisions, it's a consideration as part of a whole range of other considerations for individual planning decisions. It also enables biodiversity net gain slightly easier, and I'll come on to that in a bit. So again, how it links to the work that Bedford Borough are doing, and through your corporate plan, nature can help deliver all of these. It's getting families and particularly children connected with nature. There's several schemes out there at the moment trying to encourage schools and children to connect with nature, deliver things on the school grounds. So that's really, really important, because if the next generation don't know about nature, it's unlikely they'll be in a position to engage with it. And then there's the recent, I haven't put it on here, but it's the recent government consultation on a natural, I think it's called a natural environment GCSE or natural history GCSE, which they're consulting on, which would be fantastic, and really getting that embedded with children early on. Obviously, protecting the environment, stimulating economic growth. It's as shown, as well proven, nature can do that. It can provide that resilience. It provides attractive places for people to live and engage, and it promotes a healthy lifestyle. You can be out and about. It's good for your mental health. As you just listened to your discussions earlier around kind of cooling areas in towns and cities, when the weather's going to be as hot as it's going to be, the temperature difference between an area with trees and an area without trees is quite significant. So that's an added health benefit, as well as obviously the benefits it can give to nature. Lots of great things we'd like to do, lots of fantastic ideas, but essentially it would have to be funded from some form or another. So the main aim for the government to kind of deliver nature recovery is through things like habitat banks, which can be a great source of income for local authorities, for private landowners. And the way the local nature recovery strategy works is, if you're delivering a biodiversity units within the areas that we've mapped in the strategy, you get a 15% uplift. So I won't get too into too much detail, I'm sure many of you are aware of how BNG works. It basically gives you a higher score on your biodiversity metric when you're filling in your BNG as part of your planning application. So that's really to support the strategy and support the delivery of those habitats in those areas that we've identified, which are, as I say, linking up similar habitats. The government gradually are shaping their funding, their environmental funding particularly, to take account of the LNRS. So if you're delivering things that within the LNRS, you're more likely to get things like environmental land management scheme funding and other government grants, of which there are a fair amount for nature conservation. They're linking those in with the LNRS now as well. And the big one that's we're kind of getting our heads around and trying to understand how we could potentially do this is to bring in private finance, private investment through the sale of natural assets, essentially, or the investment in natural assets, donation to nature recovery from the corporate sector, who need to offset their emissions, for example, need to deliver any BNG of their own, have their own ESG goals that they're looking to achieve. It's something that we're really looking to tap into, is how do we create that marketplace, putting the buyers and the sellers together. There is some initial pilot work done from a few local authorities in putting together some nature investment hubs, where it makes that connection to bringing in investment from the more unusual sources rather than the government funding, which, as with most things, is pretty tight. But there is money out there in the private sector that we need to understand how we best bring that in. So we're working with the local nature partnership and looking at how we do that. So lots of great things are being delivered already. This is just an example of some of the things that are happening around the county. We've got Strawberry Hill, which is up in North Bedford Borough, which is a new wildlife trust site, one of the best places in the country for nightingales and turtle doves. So if you've not been up there, I think they're planning on putting a car park in, but it should be a fantastic site to visit. Woodend Thrift in Marston Vale, it's a new woodland area. We've got the new Clop Hill Lakes just near our office in Chicksands, which the Greenstone Trust have put in, and then there's a lot of restoration work along the Lee in Luton. So it's all linking together some of these things that have been delivered, but there's a lot more to do. So we've been asked by DEFRA to create partnerships and to identify how we can kind of deliver a step change in nature recovery. I said that the things we've been doing to date have been fantastic, but we need to do a lot more. So again, working with across the 3 authorities, working with the local nature partnership and other stakeholders, looking at how we can really embed things into delivery and develop that pipeline of projects and in turn funding opportunities, bringing people together and trying to deliver more across the landscape scale in particular. We've also been asked to monitor, so we'll be monitoring the progress of delivery against the LNRS and reporting that back to DEFRA. It's fairly light touch this year, as we've only recently received the guidance on what we're doing. But for the next 3 years, we will be reporting back to DEFRA and obviously yourselves, the 3 authorities, and the public as to how things are progressing against what we're looking to deliver in the LNRS. And I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to show some nice pictures of some of the fantastic stuff that is being done. This is a picture of again Southall, where they're doing lots of work. If you don't know Southall Estate, I'm sure you all do. It's pretty sizable. They've now got beavers on site, but they've also done a lot of river restoration. So this ditch that they got a contractor in to basically break it open and create some wetland storage, which is valuable for times of drought, times of flooding. It can hold the water back. Fantastic for a whole range of species. So it's giving those ecosystem service benefits as well as the benefits it will give for nature. They've got hares there at the moment. They've got several ponds that they've installed along with through the Great Crested Newt licensing scheme. And that newt there is disappearing off my screen, swimming away somewhere to the next pond along. But that is a Great Crested Newt. And they've got lots and lots of new ponds that they're putting together in close proximity, which is what the newts need. And lots of hedgerow planting and algal margins as well. So around the edges of their fields, creating these nature-rich areas. At Marston Vale, we've got some really rare species back. So we've got breeding bitterns. Not sure if the reed bed's in the Bedford Borough or the Central Beds border, but there's breeding bitterns now at Marston Vale by the Millennium Park, along with bearded tits and marsh harriers. So it's some of these rare species are starting to come back when you start to deliver some work like this. Tree planting amongst the wildflower meadow. So as the trees get established, you've got that instant biodiversity benefit, which is helping things, particularly around the hedgerow planting, helping things like black hair streak and strawberry hill again. I knew there was another slide in there, which is a fantastic place for, so as I mentioned, turtle doves and nightingale. So this is, I've forgotten to put this one in, another nice picture of some extensive tree planting. A lot of plastic, unfortunately, but it's going to be some fantastic areas of woodland being connected up across the Marston Vale. So it isn't just for the councils. So that to deliver this, it's as a responsible authority, Central Bedfordshire have a kind of a leadership role in it. But the delivery of all these measures, all these things that we have in the LNOS is going to rely on a whole range of different people, particularly landowners, farmers, and government agencies to enable a lot of this to be delivered. So that's my update on the LNOS. Hopefully I haven't run over time. I think I had 15 minutes. But yeah, please let me know if you've got any questions.
Thank you so much, Richard. That was fascinating and hopeful when we need hope. I can't see everybody, but Jim, I think you're the first to ask a question.
Yep, thanks, Lucy. Thanks, Richard. I think we've spoken before a while back, I think, when you started rolling this out. Really interested in this. Great presentation. I've taken lots of screenshots so that I can use these to leverage other meetings I'm in about biodiversity. One of the couple of things I wanted to ask was, and it was important that planners are fully aware of this. Have all the planning departments that in your sphere of influence been fully briefed and have got all the information that they need, or do we need to encourage them to search out more? That's the first question. And second one related to it, whilst you're the lead for Bedfordshire, what other connectivity have with the other authorities in the region? We have the South Midlands Authority, which has the 6 locations in it. I'm the co-chair of that, so I would happily champion this in a wider context, but I don't know, say, if the Northamptonshires have already got their own local nature recovery strategy, and you speak to somebody there, or whether Milton Keynes have, and whether that's associated with other Buckinghamshire. I'm not sure of that format, of how you're all connected.
Absolutely, yeah. So firstly, I'm happy to share all the slides, so you don't need to take screenshots. That's not a problem. And feel free to use them. So the first question was around training planners in particular. We've done one training session, which is where how I kind of ended up being invited here. And there is new guidance from the Planning Advisory Service. It's called a Nature Recovery Toolkit, and I'll share the link in the chat before I go, which has some guidance on that. We want to do more training across the authorities, specifically with not just planners, because there's a lot of work that could be done across different departments, but planners have that particular role. So doing more kind of specific training and a bit more detailed training with the key audiences, but also we're looking at a nature literacy training. So it's basically a very basic knowledge of nature, why it's in trouble, why it matters. but for everyone. So similar to the climate carbon literacy training, but nature literacy. So it's something that can be rolled out. It wouldn't be as long as the carbon literacy. It would be potentially an hour-long session, but just to give everyone, because one thing we found out from doing a couple of workshops, one in Bedford Borough, one in Central Beds, is that lots of people are already doing stuff in the authorities. It's just enabling that even more and capturing that. As I say, part of our role going forward is capturing that. So we certainly will be, now we've got confirmation from the government as to what they want us to do. I'm speaking to, I work with the planners. My main contact is through Simon Gallagher and Gavin Chinner through the planning teams anyway, so I do speak to them quite regularly. So it's something we can now start steaming ahead with now we've got our guidance and funding confirmed. On the third question around who we're working with, so I'm in 2 regional partnerships. So we have the East of England, which is Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, Beds, Herts and Cambridgeshire. And then we've also recently set up a partnership across the Oxcam corridor because of the potential development opportunities that are going to be through that corridor, and trying to make sure that we're delivering more. So I'm not duplicating anything. If we do some guidance, do some training for developers, for example, could we do that across the Oxcam area, for example? So we've just recently started meeting, but we have another meeting next week where we're starting to develop these ideas of, okay, how can we work across this region to give the same message? We've the Wildlife Trusts have been bringing all our maps together across the Oxcam corridor. So at the minute, all the maps are individual counties, but we've almost got a full Oxcam map, all saying similar things. So lots of opportunities for us there to start engaging across a much broader area, particularly across those boundaries. Yes, so hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks, Richard. Good questions, Jim. Can see a hand up, but I can't see. Oh, it's Councillor Hendricks.
Yeah, it's me, Lucy. Hi, thanks, Richard, for the presentation. Apologies, my camera isn't working. So could you elaborate a bit more about the criteria that were used for selecting those priority opportunity areas? And then a second quick question is perhaps more for my Bedford colleagues. Just wanted to know who the key contact is in Bedford Borough for the strategy. Sorry.
Yeah, so the areas that we've mapped, so each different action, so we have in the strategy there's 40 something different actions within it, and some of those we haven't mapped because they could be done anywhere. Planting hedgerows, for example, the map would have just been too broad to have been worthwhile. But for each different action that we have mapped, we've looked at different constraints. So for woodland, for example, we've looked at heritage sites, grade 1 agricultural land, and other constraints that would essentially, we know that those areas wouldn't be used for tree planting. It's very unlikely they'd be used for tree planting. It's just helped us narrow things down. We've also looked at where the best places are to connect things up. So we've looked at soil types. So for things like heathland, which relies on acidic soil, we've looked at, got the soil data from the Cranfield University and linked up the habitats where we know the soil could support that habitat. Again, it's trying to really refine it down as much as we can. And then we've just basically had some workshops with people ecologists who know the area, with landowners, trying to then just narrow it down to make it as accurate as possible. But in the strategy, we do say it needs ground truthing. If you're looking at the map and then you need to check your land, it actually maps up because matches up because we've mapped the whole county, and some of the data that we've used is the latest data we have, but it needs updating, which is another thing that we're looking to do. There may be some discrepancies in it, so there's a lot of ground truthing for people to do, but it's a guide as to where we think strategic guide where we think the best places are to deliver that.
Great, thank you. Could you perhaps put a link to the strategy in the comments? Would that be possible? Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you for that. And I think Hilda's other question was about the contact. Who should be the contact for us to go to at Borough Hall?
I generally speak to Sonia Gallagher is my main contact, but also Gavin as well. Other two I tend to engage with. But that probably wasn't a question for me. They're the ones I speak to the most, but obviously different levels.
That's really useful to know. Thank you. Thanks, Richard. Councillor Spice, you've got a question.
Well, no, I just wanted to add in to follow up of who to speak to. So it will come under planning policy, which all sits under Gavin. So you've got Sonia, but you've also got Phil Wadsworth, who heads up the planning policy team, and they'll all work closely together.
Excellent.
Thank you. So does anyone have any other questions or comments? I would just say it's very exciting, isn't it? But it's there are challenges. I don't know, Richard, what you would say. I mean, there are lots of challenges and obstacles, not least finance, especially for this council. But what would you say is the biggest obstacle that we should be aware of to making this really a reality and to maximising the strategy?
I think it's ensuring trying to get nature up the agenda for not just across Bedfordshire, but nationally, making sure that nature is important and people recognise its importance. Because I think it's very rarely mentioned. Maybe Andy Burnham's mentioned it. I don't know if he has, but I know he's obviously Greater Manchester have got their LNRS, and he's got the forward in there. But making it really relevant to people and how important it is. We're going to have the hottest June day on record. Nature has a big role in helping with that. I think that the challenge is if it gets swept aside as a nice to do. I think that's something that I'm concerned about. Obviously, everyone in the room here, the virtual room here, wouldn't think that, but there are many people out there, members of the public, those in management, those wherever, who we need to do some work with to really highlight how important it is. And this simple benefit that people get, whether you know anything about nature or not, just walking by a river or walking through a woodland, that's a tangible benefit you get from nature, and I think most people can recognise that they would want that. So that I would say is the biggest challenge, and the finance side of things, and how we leverage in some, particularly from the private sector, because I think that's going to be needed to deliver what we're likely to want to deliver.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, thank you for emphasising as well the multiple benefits. Like you say, it's not a nice to have, it's an essential, isn't it? And I mean, you mentioned about heat and the benefits of different aspects of the landscape and trees, and obviously Bedford Borough is always, every single year, is very vulnerable to flooding, and so parts of the strategy that can help mitigate flooding by slowing water, and you mentioned as well, really, really important. So I think, yeah, if we can, on our travels, all emphasize those aspects, that's really, really important. This is really about all the benefits, including economic and sort of life and limb, really, isn't it? As well as the beauty of it, and we do have a lot of that. Thank you. I wondered if we could have put this on the work programme for an update and say, I don't know when you think would be an appropriate time to come back to us, if you're willing.
How often do you have these meetings?
Well, during term time, about every 6 weeks.
They're bi-monthly, they're bi-monthly, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's the original.
So
I'd say,
maybe
I'm happy to come back in a couple of months, because we're going to be doing a lot of work in the next 2 months to set up the kind of governance as to how we work across the county. So it may be a slightly shorter presentation, but I'm happy to come back and say this is what we're looking to deliver, and also some of the quick wins we're looking to get in place to get things rolling. We have a few ideas around some of the surveying we need to do, some of the actions around things like black poplar, which is one of the priority species in Bedfordshire. which we hopefully with our partners will start getting things moving. So I'm happy to come back in a couple of months or 4 months time, whichever really I'm happy.
Thanks so much, Richard. So we have a meeting in September. Would people be happy for that to be on the work programme, especially as it would be quite brief, as Richard said?
Yep.
Ellie, is that okay to put that on?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Thank you. Something like I say, something hopeful. So really positive. Thanks so much, Richard. You're welcome to stay, but if I were you, I would go and do something else.
Get out of the heat.
Because I'm really sweating. But
I will
share my slides. I will share my slides and I'll share those 2 links as well.
Yes, I think there's benefit in all members seeing them. So if they could be sent to all members, so everyone can sort of play their part in promoting, that would be really good. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Thank you. Bye.
So just going back to the agenda, apologies, I didn't cover agenda item 6, which is disclosure of local and/or disclosable pecuniary interests. Does anyone happen to have any? I didn't think so, but thank you, Ellie, for reminding me. I was so excited about getting to item 7, and now it's item 8, climate strategy action plan. Not sure who's
that would be
presenting
me.
on this.
I'm going to give a quick presentation and then obviously happy to take questions. And I do have colleagues Natasha and Christina with me to help with some of the more detailed questions if there are any. But anyway, I'll introduce the report on this very sultry evening. This looks like I might get a storm outside here anyway. This report provides an update on the Council's carbon reduction delivery strategy and action plan and outlines the progress made during 2025-26 towards our commitment to achieve neutral council operations by 2030. The report covers a full range of emissions within our control, including operational buildings, fleet transport, business travel, working practices, carbon offsetting and climate resilience, as well as looking ahead to the opportunities presented by community energy and local area energy planning. Since the strategy was refreshed in 2025, we have continued to strengthen cross-departmental working and improve the way we monitor and report progress. We have established a staff reduction delivery group to provide greater oversight and to identify both opportunities and barriers to delivery. As a result, we have increased the proportion of completed actions from 11% to 18%, while over half of all actions continue to make progress. There are several positive developments to highlight. Early analysis suggests that both electricity and gas consumption are continuing to trend downwards despite the additional emissions associated with the return of the leisure facilities into the Council's portfolio. Renewable technologies installed on council buildings now provide over 5% of our overall electricity consumption, and the energy team is working with colleagues to develop a pipeline of priority sites for future investment and external funding opportunities. In transport, the previous hydro-treated vegetable oil trial demonstrated significant carbon savings, and we are currently exploring options to revisit this within the refuse fleet, which could potentially reduce emissions from that segment by up to 99%. Driver efficiency monitoring has also delivered improvements, with over 9 in 10 drivers now achieving very good standards of fuel efficient driving. We have also seen encouraging progress in staff travel. Electric vehicle use for business mileage has increased substantially, with miles travelled by electric vehicles almost tripling compared to the previous year. The local electrical vehicle infrastructure project is progressing, with the first public charging sockets expected to be installed during this financial year. In terms of wider sustainability, we continue to strengthen the links between climate change and public health, improve our reporting framework, and enhance sustainable procurement practices. The commercial food waste service has also expanded successfully, with more than 660 tonnes of food waste diverted to anaerobic digestion since the service commenced. Looking further ahead, one of our most exciting opportunities is the emergence of community energy. Through the recent Bedfordshire Community Energy Showcase and the launch of Bedfordshire Energy Together, we have begun to establish the partnerships and project pipeline needed to attract future investment through Great British Energy and Local Power Plan. Community energy has the potential not only to deliver environmental benefits, but also to generate a wider economic and social value for our communities. However, the report also highlights a number of challenges and risks. The scale of investment required to decarbonise the council's estate remains significant, and uncertainty around external funding continues to constrain progress. The reintroduction of the leisure sites has increased our emissions and has the potential to delay our projected pathway to carbon neutrality. There are additional risks associated with future cost and availability of offsetting mechanisms, as well as infrastructure limitations affecting the electrification of the fleet, particularly around depot power capacity. Declining grant funding for tree planting and the need for additional resources to support sustainable procurement and community energy development also present challenges that will require careful consideration. Overall, while the pathway to 2030 remains challenging, the report demonstrates that progress is continuing. Strong foundations are being put in place and that new opportunities are emerging which can help accelerate the council's transition to carbon neutral operations. I would like to welcome any comments or questions.
Thank you, Matt. Who would like to kick off with a question or a comment?
Right, me please, Lucy. Matt, thanks for that. I was trying to understand your comments about the operational emissions by scope, and there's a graph in there. I think it's on page 82. There's a little roundel there that says building emissions plus 15% with leisure sites, without leisure sites 21%. And is that because under the scheme that we're now running, we've taken them back under our measurement control?
Yes.
Or yeah. So if we hadn't, would we be 21% better than we currently are? That's where I just got a bit confused.
Yes. Essentially, yes.
Yeah. But given that before they came back under our control and they were being operated by somebody else, we would still have had those emissions in Bedford Borough, but we wouldn't have been counting them, would we?
No, that's correct as well, yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's kind of a false positive, isn't it? Because they were still out there anyway. And I know that we can only measure what we do, but it's the overall impact on Bedford Borough wouldn't have changed. But under our control, what we measure for ourselves, that would have been better.
Yeah, and yeah. I think that's the key to a lot of this. So we can only control the controllables, unfortunately. So I fully understand what you're saying, but that is the fact of the matter.
Yeah, we haven't got a magic wand, have we? That's the problem.
No.
Yeah, pity. Thank you.
Okay, Hilda, Councillor Hendricks.
Yes, thank you, Matt, for that introduction to the report. Yeah, I'm probably kind of more a glass half empty person because I don't see how we will get to be carbon neutral by 2030. I think we're way off, and there isn't a pathway at the moment to get there, given all that we know. I know you mentioned strong foundations, but I don't see those strong foundations. There's compared to baseline, so even without the leisure sites, we've only reduced it compared to baseline by 21%. And most of the reduction actually happened the 2 years immediately after 2018, 2019, and we haven't made kind of major strides since. And I think what I'm struggling with is I don't see a clear action plan with targets and KPIs to get us there. I work in industry as a sustainability manager, so I've looked at loads of these graphs and pathways, and we're just not making enough progress. And I understand all the restrictions and constraints, but there is something about having a strong enough impetus and drive and really making it a priority to make it happen. So that's my first comment. And the second comment is, and I will reiterate it again, for 2 years I've pointed out that we don't really have, and I think that's partly where we are struggling, we don't really have an integrated climate strategy, in the sense that an overarching plan that really spells out how we can mitigate and adapt to climate change. And just the carbon reduction delivery plan is just a small element of that. It's about more than just the carbon reduction. It's about how we deal with planning and housing and land use and food systems and the green economy and biodiversity, for example. So I think we need a refreshed climate strategy, not a climate change action plan. Because when I look at what is then the action plan, I think for the 2025 to 2030, what I read there, the words I read is explore, identify, assess feasibility. There's nothing that that's very tangible that says we will do this and this will get us there. So this is more of a comment, but happy to hear your reaction to that, Matt. And you can tell I'm a bit frustrated. Sorry.
Oh, well, do you know what? I think we're all frustrated to a certain extent, because we do have a climate strategy and we do have an action plan to get us there. But what we don't have, unfortunately, at this moment in time, is the financial investment to achieve it. So there is no climate strategy, an action plan that gets you to 2030 without investment. There isn't one. There simply isn't. Otherwise, central government would achieve theirs, wouldn't they, by 2030 and not put that back? And so we do have a strategy, because we've mentioned it, and we do have an action plan. Unfortunately, I think the frustration comes for officers and for members is that what we don't have is the resources or the finances to achieve it. In the report, it says we need £100 million of investment to achieve it. We don't have that. So I would, my comment would be, I think we do have a strategy. We do have a plan. We are always exploring opportunities to get grant funding and look at things, but we are trying to achieve this with very limited funding and resource compared to the size of the beast. So it's not that we've given up on it. It's not that we've lost enthusiasm for it. We share that same frustration, because we clearly can see a way forward to get to near net zero by 2030. But unfortunately, we can't afford it at the moment. We don't have the finances to fund it. And we do, but the team do work hard to explore opportunities, and the partnership working and looking at the community energy opportunities, I think, are other ways where we can look to maximise what funding is out there. And I think the team have done very well to achieve what they've achieved with the resources available. Unfortunately, we're coming to that thin end of the wedge, or whatever now, where we've got nothing to, we've got no more finance, or not enough finance to put in to the tasks ahead, which will help us achieve it.
Matt, this was not a reflection on the team or how hard the team are working. This is about us as a council and us as an administration prioritizing this, and even within a climate strategy, prioritizing what with the limited finance, what we do to have the biggest impact. So I think there are things we could do if we are very, very clear about what the priorities are and how we get there. This is not a criticism on the team, but this is us as a council. We need to do better.
I think the team has achieved that. They've done exactly that, because they've put solar panels on our car parks and the buildings where it makes sense and where it will give us a return, and where there's a business case as an invest to save, rather than we're spending money on an area which actually is just going to increase costs because we have that revenue pressure as a local authority. So I do think we are doing that, and the team is very good at finding opportunities where they're not just going to reduce our carbon footprint, but also to reduce our running costs long term and make our finances more sustainable alongside that. Sorry, Jim's got his hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was a mashup really of what Hilda said and what you talked about. And given that government targets have moved, whichever government, what are the funding streams now available? Have we had different advice now about how we can apply for funding and areas of strategy that they will support and areas that they won't support? I'm not sure who speaks to government or what relationships are about helping us find a way, given that we know that, absolutely right, we're not going to make it for 2030 without spending millions. Are there any other strategies that government are now advising we should be looking at?
I think if Christina doesn't mind, I'll pass this one to Christina, because she's closer to this particular subject at this moment in time than I am. But yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. So I think the main area where we need to invest heavily is community energy, because the local power plan has clearly highlighted that that's the direction where they will be releasing funding via GB Energy. And for example, just looking at this summer, we're currently developing a pipeline of 16 assets to put forward for community energy, and there are 140,000 pounds of funding available via the Greater South East Net Zero Hub, just to start with. So all the funding is going into that direction, and having that will also enable us to then look at electrification. For example, if we install community energy or renewable energy in general on depots, then we can unlock more capacity and unlock chargers and be able to transition to an electrical fleet, which is not possible right now due to the capacity constraints that are in place there. So I would say the top priority would be community energy for now for us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. And that's an opportunity to really thank you for the excellent work on the community energy you're doing, but also for the event a few weeks ago, which was excellent and so inspiring. It was so good to have so many experts under one roof and talking about funding and talking about how it could be driven forward practically. And obviously that's mentioned in the papers here. And I think that was really positive. But I have to say, I do agree overall with what Councillor Hendricks is saying, that there needs to be a real drive and commitment. And I don't sense, this is absolutely not criticism officers, because you are doing what you can with the meager tools you have, frankly, but we need leadership from the administration, because a lot of this is, if we do this properly, the benefits will be multiple, and if we don't, the costs of not doing it will be catastrophic, and they already will be. So yeah, I appreciate the hard work officers are doing, and as members, this is political, but we need to make sure they have the resources. Just for example, Christina's colleague Claire left, I believe, to work for a housing association a few months ago, but Claire wasn't actually replaced. So Christina is doing that job, and excellently, but who is there supporting Christina? Who is the rest of the team? The team is basically sort of diminished. So they are doing more, I think, with less. And that's really tough, and that it shouldn't be that way. So if this council is committed, it needs to really put the resource in and acknowledge it is an urgency. It's not a, like we were saying before with nature recovery, it's not a nice to have. It's very urgent. Hilda, did you have another question, or is that a legacy hand?
No, it's another question. It's not a rant. It's a specific question. It's about the HVO trial. I understood we abandoned the idea for technical reasons. So how come we are revisiting it now? What has changed?
Okay, yes, so that's correct. It was abandoned due to technical reasons, and I've been through something similar with a previous authority where it was successful. And on reanalyzing the trial and speaking to the manager for the fleet, and he contacted back in the company, and we looked at the tank. There was contamination in the tank which caused like a bacterial algal bloom within the HVO, and it was that bloom that caused the mechanical issues in the vehicles rather than the fuel. So it started feeding on the fuel, but then what it created was an issue in the vehicles. So what we're proposing to do is explore the trial again, have the tank cleaned, and I'm just receiving the costings later this week to get the tank cleaned, and then prove the concept across the fleet again that we don't have any mechanical issues. Obviously, at the time, we can't have the refuse fleet breaking down, and so the reason, quite rightly, they abandoned the trial and abandoned it was because of the reliability of the vehicles and continuity of service. But there have been several authorities that have successfully implemented this, and probably out of all of the options we've got currently available to have a significant decrease on our carbon emissions, this one would probably be the one that's more likely to be cost effective at this moment in time. So we'll get the trial done quite happily. Obviously, we'll report back on that, and there'd have to be a business case. I do want to bring to members' attention that HVO is more expensive than diesel per litre, and it tracks with diesel just because it's a different sort of fuel. Fuel is energy prices, they just track. If one goes up, the other goes up, etc. So even if that is successful, which I hope it is, it would be an increased revenue cost to essentially deliver the same service for residents. And so that would have to be a careful consideration, again, around financial priorities mixed in with our ambitions on the climate action plan.
Thank you, Matt. So with reference to that, there were, I do recall, a few press releases about breakdowns. Was that related to the HVO then in the last sort of year? I recall.
I don't know. I wasn't here when that took place, but Paul probably answer that better because he was. So
yeah, as Matt said, what happened is the actual fuel sort of turned into a sludge, which then caused problems with the filter and the ejectors and stuff like that. So, operating the frontline service like the refuse collection and having an impact on that, we tried everything to resolve that, and it was decided at that time, due to the huge impact it was having on the fleet, we had to stop that trial. But as Matt says, we've spoken to other councils. I think the company that come in and initially cleaned the tank for us didn't do a thorough job. So once the HVO then got put into the tank, thank goodness we didn't put it into the main tank, and it was put into a smaller secondary tank. Otherwise, we would have been in trouble. Caused the problem, which it took some time, to be honest, for us to fathom out what had actually happened, because it's not something we've dealt with before, and we thought it would be quite a simple process. But as Matt says, it is a totally different to diesel, and it has to be managed in a way completely different in lots of different sort of elements. So we've learned quite a lot this time. We've obviously spoke to other councils and other people that have used it, spoken to suppliers, spoken to people that clean the tanks out, and we've built up quite a good knowledge now. So I think we're at a place where at some stage we will go back and do that trial, do it in a small way, and obviously if that's successful, see how we can move that forward then, because it is a quick win really as such. The vehicles can run on it. It just has to be maintained and kept in the right way.
Thank you, Paul. I had a question, a couple of other questions about travel, but not to do with refuse, to do with, first of all, well, there was good news on the staff active travel and the staff electric vehicle use, and the fact that the pooled bikes are going to be used again. Is that right? Are those the ones that I've been seen mouldering in the car park for quite a long time? Are those the same ones that are going to be brought back into use or have already been brought back into use?
Yeah, they've been off-site, been all fully cleaned, etc., and maintained, and they'll be coming back in the next week or two, and a bit of a push to get them going. We're also looking at the bikes with the baskets on the front as well, to look to obviously get them maintained and also push them back into service as well, the cargo bikes.
Great. I think they have a lot of potential, don't they? So yeah, I also had a question about the question of really the challenge of active travel more widely in the population, not just staff, because local transport in Bedford makes up more than a third of local emissions, and that's more than average, more than the national average. And so that's carbon emissions, but it's also air pollution, so that's a health issue. So it's vital that the larger active travel team are focusing on that as a priority. What sort of activities can we look forward to? Could we have an update from the active travel team here at this committee?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. I think that'd be a good idea. I will contact them after the meeting and see if we can get them onto the agenda, onto the work programme.
Thank you, because that's one of the things that we can directly influence in the wider population. I mean, it's something that we can do, and as I say, it's a huge proportion of local emissions, transport, and of course we have the bus issue as well, but we won't go into that now. But in terms of travel, there is a lot of not such good news for Bedford at the moment. So there, I had that question. What was my other question? Oh, it was a smaller question, but it was in previous meetings we've had information about the sort of the various funding streams for tree planting, basically sort of dropping off a cliff, because the council made good use of those before, didn't they? Can we have a quick update on the sponsored tree scheme? What's happening with that now? I know it was kind of transitioning to something different for next season. Is it possible to say what's happening with that? Because residents do ask me.
Yeah. Do you want what?
We could do a briefing note on that, if that's all right. Yeah. Off-gender briefing report.
Yes, please. That would be good. Yeah, because I think the trees for streets particularly has been positive. It's a relatively small number in the big picture, but it has real value for health and well-being as well as emissions and also flood mitigation, because trees absorb water obviously, and they're really shade. I've got a tree outside the front of my house, and the front of my house is much cooler than some of my neighbours. So it is really important. Thank you. So any other questions for Matt or Paul or Christina on this, or Natasha? No? Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you very much, Matt and team. Much appreciated, really useful report. And then we move on to item 9, which is food waste and glass recycling.
Sorry, you got me again. Okay, this report provides an update on the implementation of 2 significant changes to the borough's recycling services, both of which have been introduced to ensure compliance with the requirements of the Environment Act 2021 and the simpler recycling regulations. Firstly, members will be aware that in December 2025, we expanded our successful curbside glass collection trial to all households across the borough. Secondly, in March this year, we launched a new weekly food waste collection. These have been major service changes requiring significant planning, procurement and communications activity over the last 2 years. In particular, the food waste service has involved securing treatment capacity, procuring specialist vehicles and containers, undertaking route optimisation work and developing bespoke collection solutions for many different types of communal living arrangements that exist across the borough. I'm pleased to report that the early indications are very positive. In relation to glass recycling, we have seen a substantial increase in the amount of recyclable material collected through the orange lidded bins, with an additional 779 tonnes collected between December and March. At the same time, the amount of glass being taken to the mini recycling sites has fallen significantly, demonstrating that residents have embraced the convenience of curbside collections and have changed their recycling habits accordingly. Regarding food waste, modelling suggested that we would collect around 5,000 tonnes annually, equivalent to approximately 425 tonnes each month. In the first full month of operation, we've collected more than 442 tonnes of food waste, which is in line with, although slightly above, our expectations. That material is processed locally through anaerobic digestion, generating renewable energy and producing fertiliser for use on local farmland. These early results reflect not only the commitment of residents to recycling more, but also the success of extensive communications campaign that supported both service changes through leaflets, digital communications, social media and face-to-face engagement. We have reached a very large proportion of residents and helped them understand how to make best use of the new services. This work has been recognised externally, with the council being shortlisted for the letsrecycle.com awards for excellence in the category of Best Local Authority Recycling Initiative. We are also beginning a phased review of glass bring sites across the borough. As more residents recycle glass at the curbside, usage of some bottle banks have reduced significantly. Any removal programme will be carefully managed, with engagement with parish councils and monitoring of locations to minimise the risk of fly tipping and ensure residents continue to have access to appropriate recycling facilities. Looking ahead, the focus will be on embedding these new services, improving online self-service facilities for residents and preparing for the next phase of simpler recycling, namely introduction of flexible plastics from April 2027. Overall, the report demonstrates that these significant changes have been delivered successfully and that residents are responding positively, and that the council is making good progress in increasing recycling rates and supporting its wider environmental and climate objectives. Does anyone have any questions or comments, please? And I've just got to shut the windows because it's pouring with rain. 1 second.
Councillor Spice, once Matt's shut the window. It's not raining here.
It came down here where I am in Bedford for a little while.
It's very localised, isn't it?
The kids ran and brought all the cushions in, thankfully. It was I guess I was going to start with less so of a question and more of a comment. So I'll start with my comment, but then I do have a separate question. And my comment would be that I would like to give thanks to all of you, and particularly to Ben Woodfine for all the amazing and creative comms that have come out. I think each one's been quite different, and it's sort of pinpointed people in different ways, and it has been educational and fun. So I really would like you to pass on my thanks, and I think many of us thanks for that. But my question separately, which I thought about afterwards, is at what point do we start deciding on the town centre bottle bins? Because I know you said you were going to be liaising with the parish councils, but obviously unless I missed it, and I'll apologise if I did, in town we don't have parish councils, but we also have a lot more flats, and I don't know how well the orange recycling goes with them. So I was just curious as to what the plan was for town.
Yeah, we'll look at all the bring back banks as a collective. Obviously, there's a different situation with the parishes and the towns, as you've mentioned, but we'll analyse the data coming from those sites, and we'll then be able to predict what impact there would be from removing them. We'll still talk to ward members about, you know, those removals and potential impacts, and so we're still engaging in that manner, and then we'll come up with a solution or recommendation for what we do with those sites. But you're correct. We do get a lot of contamination on recycling sites, where we get shared waste collection, and so that's something that we'd have to consider, is if the waste is going to be contaminated, if we're forcing people, if you like, to put the glass into those shared sites, and then therefore we couldn't potentially recycle it, would we be better? So there has to be a balance there, and we'll have to bring that evidence.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And then just following on from that, but kind of with the contamination, and focusing on the town centre, we have it feels like a lot of, but I don't know proportionalised to ratio, a lot of the new green food waste bins that have popped up all around town. Are we monitoring the use of them? Because I can't wonder if some places will get really used and some places won't get used at all, and then they're not in the right place, and also the contamination in those as well. Are people just chucking any rubbish in them?
That's a good question. I don't believe we've started monitoring those yet, because we're still in the early days of embedding the service across the whole borough. We don't have lots of those sites, and certainly I've not heard any reports from crews of particular contamination. However, it wouldn't surprise me if there is contamination in those areas. And certainly when I looked at some communal food waste bins a couple of weeks ago, when I was out on a visit with Councillor Gribble, there was contamination in those food waste bins. And so there will be some issues, no doubt. We ask crews to look for contamination and to inspect for contamination. And we can also ask our recycling team officers to go out and have a look. So I think that will be something that we'll be taking away and definitely looking at over these next couple of months.
Okay, fab. And then just to finish off, sorry, would it be possible, and I know it's like on the forward plan or the work programme, but it'd be really interesting if either at the next meeting or if that's too soon at the meeting after, to try and get an analysis of the green bins in town and which ones are being used and which ones aren't being used so much.
Yeah, so there's an intention in the autumn to write a report on how food waste has gone generally, and obviously an update on where we are with glass, because by then we probably will be in that removal process of some of the bring bank sites. But we'll have some tangible data then after so many months of doing it, where we can benchmark against what's happening nationally and what's happening locally with other neighbouring authorities. At the minute, and obviously when the report was written, we only had a month's data. We'll have a lot more time to move away from the phase of where we've been embedding the service with frontline staff and crews, working with the customer services team. Ben's obviously been massively pouring out, trying to get engagement, and then we can start tailoring some of that message across.
Okay, I think sorry Lucy, I think what I was thinking more of, rather than benchmarking against national for food waste, is, you know, say for example, I don't know, we've got one at the bottom of the high street near the Standard. Does that get used at all? If it doesn't get used, A, is it in the right place, or B, do we need to do some direct communications with the people in the flats around that part of the town to make sure they use it? I'm just pinpointing that one. I'm not saying that one's going to be an issue. I'm just trying to think of one. But there's lots of them scattered around town, and I was just curious whether they are going to get used, and if not, do we need to either move them to a different place, or they're there for the reason because of the flats and we need to communicate better with the flats?
They are there for the flats, and obviously they're available for public use as well, but it's just where the flats don't have suitable room to store those bins, and that's why they're there. But yeah, we will have some data of local rounds, because we can see what tonnage is going in at the tips. We know how many properties they're collecting from, or we know the size what the round is potentially, so we can start to see what engagement from certain wards and areas is. So we do have the data, and we can look through that and to see if engagement's gone up or down, and which areas recycle more food. But I guess initially, really, people shouldn't be wasting food in the first place is the ultimate climate save. So we shouldn't necessarily judge people by how much food we're actually collecting as a good thing. But yeah, we are going to analyse that data. Absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll put it in a report.
Thank you. Councillor Hendricks' question.
Yeah, it's partly related to data. So yeah, it would be great to have a report on that later on, Matt, including things like contamination rate, but also the missed bin rate and participation, etc. But one question I was curious about is what is the kind of financial arrangement around food waste? So we take it to the recycling site where they turn it into gas and liquid fertilizer. Do we pay for that service? Do we get paid? How does it work?
Yeah, we pay for the service as a disposal cost for doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much does it cost?
Natasha, do you want to come in on that element?
Yes, I can do. So food waste collection contractor Biogen. Obviously, I'm not going to reveal what their gate fee is publicly because that's commercially sensitive, but it is by far and away the most cheap per tonne gate fee that we as a council pay for any of the waste streams that we get rid of. It is what I would call a very nominal fee.
Okay.
Thanks, Natasha. And we're going to go and visit, I think. If anyone hasn't seen, Ellie's put out a poll with dates so that we can go and have a look and see exactly how it works, which would be helpful, I think, to send feedback when residents have natural questions. Councillor
We've also got the online video that Councillor Gribble starred in, showing the process of how the food waste is processed.
That's correct. Yes, it's useful for people to see, isn't it? Councillor Gribble, thank you, Natasha.
Yeah, thank you, Natasha, and thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to the Matt's team who've been working really hard. I mean, it has not been without its challenges. We have weekly, sometimes more meetings if we need to. We had a meeting this afternoon, and we're sort of things are ironing out a bit, Matt, aren't they? At the minute, we've identified through data hotspots and certain rounds that are proving problematic, and we are working on those. But I think certainly just from anecdotally, complaints coming my way are lessening. That's all I can say. And I think certainly most of my residents, most of my friends are really excited about food waste, and I can just be at random places and people will come up and say, oh wow, it's really good, we're really pleased and it's going really well, so thank you. So I'd also like to apologise to Max. I think I do make quite a bit of work because being naturally nosy and naturally curious, I do wander around. I don't stick to my own ward. I stick, I go, we go in a lot of places, don't we, Matthew? So we are looking at the issues with flats, certainly the issues with HMOs, and about either education or actually bringing a regime in that actually works. Because the last thing in the world we want is, some people doing wonderful recycling, for example, the bin being on the roadside and then just someone bunging a kebab in it and actually the whole load is contaminated. So it's very much an active way of working at the minute, and we're looking at loads of different ways, and we're also talking today about removing the curbside, the bring banks. So I think Matthew would tell you I do actually I'm quite demanding sometimes, but you know what, we've got a great team. We are exploring, we are you know, we don't take things on face value, and we try and put ourselves in the situation of our residents and what would they want, how would they like it, what would make it easier for them. So it's ongoing. It's stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and no matter how much I enjoy waste, it isn't a sexy topic. But I am quite passionate over it. But yeah, so thank you, Matthew, and apologies as well. So thank you.
Oh, no problem. You're welcome.
Thank you. So thanks, Matt. So what of all, I mean, it's been really complex, hasn't it? It's been a huge thing to introduce. So thank you. You know, just to echo thanks to your team. What's the sort of biggest teething problem that remains, would you say? Is there one thing that you think we've got to crack this nut, or is it just lots of little things to do with flats?
No, I think the biggest one is we had to get 7 new teams in. Forget about the vehicles bit. I mean, obviously, I say forget about the vehicles. That was a challenge. You know, every authority was trying to get this. I think, you know, so that we're still waiting for 3 vehicles, but they provided replacements at no extra cost, temporary, and hopefully they'll come in the next couple of weeks. But also, yeah, I mean, Natasha and the team procuring all the bins and everything and getting them delivered out, you know, massively challenging, especially to flats, because whereas the waste might be collected from a communal area, trying to get access for the internal caddies, we, you know, didn't have key codes for doors, bits of this, really hard to get hold of a lot of the landlords because they're like a national number and they couldn't get us access and bits and pieces. That was quite challenging. But the one at the minute is we employed in a difficult market, you know, 7 drivers and 14 loaders, and trying to get the quality, trying to get experienced people in a changing market has proved difficult. And getting them in on time was difficult and challenging as well. And subsequently, we've suffered some performance issues with the food waste collections where we've had missed bins and missed assisted collections and that sort of thing. We have obviously worked hard to get some better staff in and work through those challenges. They're coming through now. And again, we're looking at the crunching the data, as Councillor Gribble said, and looking at which rounds seem to be more problematic, which ones are causing the biggest amount of missed bins. We're working with those particular crews to improve their performance and understand and support if it's a technical issue with that they're not understanding, and I'm trying to understand why they're not performing as well as we should be. And supporting them, but ultimately, if they can't be supported, then we'll be in a position where we'll have to. They're on the agency. We will have to replace them with others, and we're in a better place now. We understand what some of the issues are. We understand who those crews are, and we're working with them. And I've given quite clear instructions to my team leaders in that area that my expectations of them to performance manage these teams and get that back where it should be. I mean, I will say that the other waste streams, although they have missed bins, and although I would like to reduce them, they're nowhere near at the level of issues that we've got with the food waste, because most of those were more experienced staff that we'd already got here for a period of time. So I think that's the most challenging thing and pressing thing at the minute. It's definitely my main priority, because Ben's done all that fantastic work in getting people to engage, and so I know members have as well, to get their communities and engage in this process, and we've invested all that time and effort. Nothing worse than people are wanting to take part and then we don't collect the food. There's going to be no quicker turn off, especially in this heat. So it's something that I really need to get on top of, like yesterday, and that is the priority.
Thanks, team. Thanks, Matt. And yeah, good work by the team. Obviously, really challenging. And yeah, I think Ben's comms has been really ingenious and using sort of humour and surprising. I think he's managed to shoehorn a food caddy into almost every obscure post you could think of. So it's become a sort of spot to the food caddy. But he's done a great job on that, and because there was a lot for people to learn and take on board, and the FAQ seemed useful as well online to people, and it was being updated, wasn't it? So that was useful.
I think something else just to bear in mind as well, the food waste collection is slightly different to a normal waste collection in that operatives will take a service bin because it's small and fill that up. And so they're away from the vehicle quite a bit. And so checking on the Bartek system, which is in a vehicle and bits and pieces, has proved a challenge. So we've explored options where, for instance, where there's an assisted collection, we've printed sheets out for those rounds now, so loaders can sort of look, I'm going to go down these couple of roads in the next few minutes. They could either take that with them and just see where the assisteds are, rather than them just assuming that no one's presented a food waste caddy there. So they're things we sort of learn on the hoof, really, as a part of delivering a new service, and it is delivered in slightly different way, is actually understanding that that's a bit restricted. And sometimes people will put their wheelie bins in a different place than their food caddies. We've discovered that as well, which is not helpful, because although we did all that round reconfiguration, so food caddies would be presented with another bin, which would help. People, for some reason, have decided not to put their food caddy near their other bin. Don't ask me why, but these are all little quirks and things that the teams are having to learn as they go. So yeah, it's a bit of a different beast. We've had a learning curve, certainly in the management of that service, as well as the guys on the ground. So it's not all that bad that what that they're doing. We're having to find them workarounds to support them as well.
Thanks, Matt. Councillor Walker, Jane, you have a question.
It's not a question, it's a comment. I just wanted to say they must be amazing, these guys. I thought the worst job in the world was the poo bin collecting guys, but having seen my food bin, which is going out tonight, it is full of maggots, and I just thought I could not be the person to empty that. That would just, because they have to actually take the bin, don't they? And I mean, everything's tied up in there, but somehow the flies have got in, and it's so please thank them. They're amazing to be able to do that job.
I think a lot of them are budding fishermen. So
maybe my husband did actually say, "Oh, I'll have a look at that," but I didn't let him. It was horrible.
Don't let anything go to waste. You know?
Thank you.
Just one very final question, Matt, not about food waste, but it's mentioned about the soft plastics recycling coming in next March. Is it envisioned yet that there won't be an extra bin, that those will go in the orange bin?
I think I'll pass this on to Natasha if you don't mind, but I do believe that's the case, that it will be collected. Yeah.
So we've been, yes, we've been looking with interest at some of the trials that have happened across the country, and we've been speaking to materials recycling facility operators. There doesn't really seem to be one kind of preferred method of collection coming through at the moment across the industry. Some MRFs would rather it was loose within a bin. Some MRFs would like it in a bag, but within the same bin as the rest of the recycling. And some places have opted to do a separate bag by the side of the recycling bin. Like I said, there doesn't seem to be one sort of preferred route at the moment. For the purposes of extracting that material, I would have assumed that having it in what's called a survival bag, so a bag within a bin, would probably make that a bit easier. But it's interesting to note that the industry itself hasn't really come up with anything yet, given that we're not that far away, really, from the 1st of April 2027, when that has to come in. So we are watching with interest as to how the few trials that are going on are being conducted, and what results they get. It's obviously very light and very springy, that material, all that plastic wrapping. So corralling it in some sort of a bag would seem like a logical thing to do to me. But we'll keep everybody posted as to what the preferred option that comes out of those trials looks like.
Thanks, Natasha. I think some people will be pleased if there isn't an extra bin in terms of bulk.
It's a consideration, particularly for Bedford. We know we've got a lot, particularly of terrace housing in the town centre that struggles with the number of bins that we've got at the moment already anyway.
Yeah.
So if we can possibly avoid it, I think that's a good starting point on any kind of scheme.
Yeah, definitely. If we can still maximise the collection without contamination, that sounds good. I think unless anyone's got any other questions or comments about this, we're finished with that item. Thank you, Matt and Natasha, for all your work and for the report. Really helpful. So we move on to the work programme, I think, don't we? So you can see well, first of all, does anyone have any questions or comments about it? Or suggestions?
I guess adding the more detailed report on the food waste later this year would be good.
So when would be a good time to do that? Would November be a good time? Does that give enough time to sort of to be able to report back?
Natasha, I know you'll be doing the report, so it'd be unfair for me to say.
I think we want probably 6 months worth, full 6 months worth of data, which we should have by the middle of October. So November's meeting, if it's early part of November, it might be a little bit too soon.
Yeah.
Okay, so the following
meeting is
January.
Otherwise it would be February. So it's the 23rd of November.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that should be okay, I think. Yeah.
Might be doable.
Yeah.
Okay, so people happy for that to be in there. And then I have a suggestion. Well, I'd like to propose a plant-based treaty presentation. So Councillor Edmonds has been in touch with the Plant-Based Treaty Organisation, and they're happy to come and do a presentation. And they do have someone available on the 28th of September. Would people be amenable to having that added and to hearing about that?
Well, what is that about, Lucy?
So plant-based treaty is linked to it's linked to sustainable development goals, and a large number of councils have done it, including of most political parties, actually. Certainly some Lib Dem administrations, Green and Labour, and it's looking at the carbon, considering the carbon from animal agriculture and how plant-based diets are low carbon and more sustainable, as well as sustainable in terms of biodiversity. So that would be something that we could learn more about and ask questions and comments as usual, if people feel that would be useful. Animal agriculture is obviously one of the biggest emitters. So yeah, something useful for the council to consider. Got a thumbs up?
Yeah, fine by me.
Yeah, is that okay? Great, thank you. So if we're able to fit that in on the 28th of September, Ellie? Great, thank you. So if that's everything, I think it is. I think we are finished with this meeting. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, Lucy. Cheers.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go on.
Bye.
I'm gonna go and open the fridge door now and stick my head in it.
Bye. Have
See you
fun.
guys. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.